Prynhawn da, good afternoon. Diolch yn fawr iawn am ddod. Thank you so much for being here. Croeso i'r Senedd. Welcome to Senedd Cymru. My name is Rydyn Bowen Phillips. I will be your host for today. And just a little bit of housekeeping before we get underway. Dyn ni ddim yn disgwyl larwm tân, felly os chi yn clywed rhywbeth, mae'r dehangfa tân fanna. We're not expecting a fire alarm, but if you do hear an alarm, then the nearest fire exit is there. There will be some sort of an alarm. I've learned a word today called plenary, which means meetings. Is that right? Something like that? Yeah, but that's for the AMs, the MSs, sorry. So they will know when to go to a meeting. The nearest toilet, y tai bach, maen nhw yn y cefn fanna, they're in the back there. And mae yna luniau, mae yna fideos yn cael ei recordio heddi. You will be filmed and photographed heddi this afternoon. So if anyone has an issue with that, could you please let the staff know so we can share things on social media and on the news as well. So diolch yn fawr iawn am hwnna. Mae yna ddigwyddiadau o fywyd go iawn yn mynd i cael ei ddangos heddi. You will see real life events. They'll be shown as part of the presentation. So if you are affected by any of the content shown, we have a quiet space available. So please speak to a staff member. Unrhyw cwestiynau, any questions, we will kindly ask that you discuss them with the team over lunch or are submitted via the feedback forms in your welcome packs. You've all got a welcome pack on your seats. Mi fyddwch chi yn cwrdd rai o'r tîm, rai o'r bobl pwysig. You will meet some of the wider team today during the presentation, so I will refer to my notes to get everyone's names right. I didn't realise that the doc was a professor, but he is Professor Len Oakes, Independent Chair, Save a Life Cymru. Julie Starling, Clinical OHCA Programme Manager for Wales. Dr Wendy Hardman, Postdoctoral Research Fellow, Save a Life Cymru Research Hub, Cardiff Met. Dr Susan Goodfellow, Quality Improvement Skills Tutor at HEIW, Improvement Advisor, NHS Wales Executive. Jamie Sullivan, Advanced Health Intelligence Analyst. Fiona McLean, Welsh Ambulance Service, a Patient Experience and Community Involvement Manager. Felly, dyna pwy fydd yn siarad. Those are the people who will be speaking and you will meet later on. Just a little thing, as a Cardiff City fan, I'm honoured to say some of the first team are here as well. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you for coming, boys. And also, as a huge Cymru football fan, it's an honour to say that the Cymru football manager, Craig Bellamy, has joined us as well. Felly, diolch Craig, diolch. Thank you, Cardiff City. Without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Rhiannon Passmore, MS, who has had a keen interest in improving outcomes from out-of-hospital cardiac arrest for some years. Rhiannon Passmore, diolch yn fawr.
Croeso, welcome to the Senedd. It's a privilege to welcome you all here today for this important event. And as the sponsor of today's gathering, I'm honoured to help shine that spotlight today on the life-saving work of Save a Life Cymru. In 2017, the Welsh Government launched the Out-of-Hospital Cardiac Arrest Plan for Wales, a vital strategy aimed at improving survival rates for those who suffer a cardiac arrest outside of a hospital setting. While progress has been made, we know that there is still much more to do. Each year, the Welsh Ambulance Service NHS Trust responds to over 6,000 cardiac arrests, yet survival rates remain stubbornly low, likely below 5%. And this is why the work of Save a Life Cymru as a Welsh Government-funded programme is so crucial. Through CPR training, defibrillator awareness and community engagement, they are driving real and lasting change. Today's event brings together experts, practitioners and those with lived experience, all united by a common goal to improve survival rates and ensure more people have the skills and also the confidence to step in when every second counts. We will shortly hear from Professor Len Oakes, Independent Chair of Save a Life Cymru, alongside leading experts and frontline professionals who are making a real and tangible difference in out-of-hospital cardiac arrest response and survivorship. But most importantly, we will hear from cardiac arrest survivors and their families, whose stories remind us why this work is not just necessary, but urgent. Their voices are a powerful call to action. So I encourage all of you to engage fully in today's discussions, to collaborate and to take away key insights that will help strengthen all of our collective efforts in this place. We all have a role to play in making Wales a nation of lifesavers. Let's ensure that that awareness that we can engender and raise today leads to meaningful action. Let's commit to equipping more people with the skills and confidence to save a life, expanding access to defibrillators and supporting the vital work of Save a Life Cymru. Because when it comes to cardiac arrest, every second counts, and together we can all make a difference. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you. Look forward to the rest of the day. Thank you. Diolch.
I'd like to introduce now Professor Len Noakes, who is the Independent Chair of Save a Life Cymru. Len.
Thank you, Rhiannon. Thank you very much, and thank you for sponsoring today's event. I'd like to thank the Senedd as well for hosting it. Croeso, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Len Noakes. I'm the Independent Chair of Save a Life Cymru, and I'm extremely proud to be the chair, and I hope at the end of the presentations you'll see why. It's so lovely to see so many colleagues here that are involved in saving lives through cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR, and the use of defibrillators. Welcome, welcome indeed, colleagues. Right, why and how did I become the chair, Save a Life Cymru? Why? I'm glad the pictures are there. You'll see a beautiful young woman there. Claire, my daughter. She was 25 and she had a cardiac arrest at somebody's house, a friend's house. Most of you will know about the chain of survival. The fact is, you've got to recognize someone's having a cardiac arrest, and then you get on with CPR. Also, most of you will know about the fact that there's a 1-minute rule that if every 1 minute you don't do CPR, your chances of surviving drop by 10%. My daughter had 20 minutes before her heart was restarted. She suffered catastrophic brain injury. She didn't have oxygen going to her brain, and she was in a vegetative state for 9 months. No one should go through the journey that my wife and my son went through. Nobody. So how did I become the chair? Well, I wrote a book, and I think the cover's there, only time will tell, thinking it would help me. And I must say, I wrote the book, I was helped by Mark Denham, a very good and close friend of mine, and Professor Bernard Knight in producing it. At the time, I was aware that the school curriculum for Wales didn't have CPR included, whereas Scotland and England did, just been recently introduced. And I thought, well, I've got to do something about this. So I said, how do I do it? Well, the only thing I could think of was going to the Welsh Government. And who better to go to than the First Minister at the time, Mark Drakeford. And I went along to him, and I managed to get to see him through contacts. And I asked him, what can I do to help raise awareness of CPR in the Welsh community? And after a period of time, somebody got back to me and said, well, we'd like you to be the independent chair of a fledgling organisation, Save a Life Cymru. So that's how I got to be taking up the position. Now, I'll say to everyone here is that if any organisation or any individual saves one life, one life, then it's worth it. Absolutely. And I'd even further add to that, it's not just the individual you save, it's the family, the loved ones and everything else. You save them as well. I'm not going to go back to the figures, the out-of-hospital cardiac arrest figures, survival rates. We're poor. And that's what SaLC was all about. The Welsh Government said, get on, get it moving, increase it. So that's what we're doing. But before I go in and present the rest of the team, it's important to note that SaLC is an organisation, not just as I chair, a great honour to. You will see my colleagues coming up here soon to present. But there are people here that have worked behind the scenes to get today done, and I'd like to thank Glenda, who's the comms manager. I don't know where Glenda is at the moment. She's somewhere. I'd also like to thank our coordinators, Sean, the two Chris's, Mark and Thomas. Also, there's Nikki, our administrator, who looks after me and keeps me on a close rein to make sure I get things done. And then there's Michael and Cardiff Met, who's our research arm. So, we're now on a journey to increase the out-of-hospital cardiac arrest figures and increase the rates of survival. And I think before I pass over to Julie, who is the clinical manager, there are two other people I really would like to thank, and I wouldn't be standing here if it wasn't for them. It's my wife, my son. Thank you.
I'm not sure I'm going to follow that, Len, but I'll give it a go. So as Len has already alluded to, Save a Life Cymru is quite unique. We have an independent chair, we have QI support and data analyst support from the NHS executive, we have a research hub, and we have 6 SaLC community coordinators supported by WAST and the Welsh Ambulance Service, or in the NHS. And we also have you. Everybody here, sitting in the room today, is here because you all have the same passion and drive that we have to save lives. And so I'd like to begin, first of all, by expressing my heartfelt gratitude to you all here today for your support and commitment to the collaborative working that we're doing. On behalf of SaLC, I'd like to thank you all for your support and dedication. It's through our collaborative efforts that we will be able to drive meaningful change and to make a real impact, together working to improve survival from out-of-hospital cardiac arrest and shape a stronger, more resilient future for out-of-hospital cardiac arrest survivors, their families, and those who have witnessed or performed CPR. I'd like to thank Neville for sharing his story, and I'd like to share it with you now.
This is Neville Owen from Anglesey. He's special because he's one of the 250 people who suffer an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest every day. He's also special because he's here and able to tell his story. On August 21st last year, Neville was driving through Conwy Tunnel when he suffered a cardiac arrest. His heart stopped beating. A traffic officer nearby knew how to perform cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR to you and me, and kept Neville's heart pumping blood around his body. Then 2 police officers arrived and assisted, using a defibrillator to restart his heart before paramedics arrived. Neville was lucky. Many other people aren't. He's here today visiting Glenclwyd Hospital's Cardiac Centre to give Save a Life Cymru awards to those who saved him and thank the team for his continuing care. If you do nothing else today, watch this video. Listen to Neville and please click on the link at the end of it. You may even help to set a world record.
Hi Neville.
Hello, Sir.
Okay, how you doing?
How are you?
Good, thank you.
See you again. And you again?
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so my name's Leon Kinniston. Currently working as a traffic officer for the Welsh Government Traffic Officer Service in the Mutra. Well, the first time I encountered Neville was probably one of the most traumatic times you can encounter someone. You know, we were dispatched to an incident on the opposite side of Conwy Tunnel to assist the police. So Conwy Tunnel had been set to a lane closure, so traffic in lane 2, speed restriction, and 6 cars ahead of us. You know, there was a van that just started swerving, crashing into the tunnel bores. So as we responded, we turned on lights, stopped the traffic, went to assess, got to Neville's vehicle, and it was obvious to us, you know, for our training what had happened to him. He was in cardiac arrest, having a heart attack. It was really easy to kick in. You know, sometimes you can get a bit apprehended, a bit scared about doing CPR, but really the training and the situation dictates that you're going to be commencing CPR. So we've had, you know, 30 compressions, 2 mouth breaths. You know, if you can't give the mouth breaths, it's you carry on with your compressions. So for us, really, it's learning about the importance of CPR and how much that really increases the likelihood of survival. So any fears go out the window. It's really based on training and keeping that man alive.
And yeah, we get trained in using the defib. However, the defibs, I've got to stress to people, the defibs are so easy to use that anybody can pick up a defib. And if somebody needs that defib, don't be scared to use that defib. It has all the instructions in the defib. It won't let you do anything that is going to harm that patient or hurt them or anything like that.
I'm one of the 6 colleagues who do interventional cardiology. By the time the paramedics arrived, and it was found that he was having a major heart attack, so the gold standard treatment for that is to open up the occluded artery, the coronary artery, which is supplying the heart muscles with blood. So we are the center in North Wales doing that procedure. So he was rushed in. So we have a dedicated team for that, 24/7. So he was brought in straight to the what we call as the cardiac catheter lab. We identify the blocked coronary artery and open it up by using balloon, and sometimes we use techniques to suck out the clot which is blocking the artery, and then invariably we put in a stent, which is a metal scaffold, to keep the artery open. In his case, he has had a very good outcome. He was discharged home, and I'm very happy to see him back doing very well.
Well, every time I come here, the staff can't do enough for you, help you to feel at ease, and check out all the problems. It's been fantastic. I can't thank them enough, really. I think it's 50% in the mind, because any twinges you get, thinking, what's that? They put you everything at ease. So any questions you got, you just ask them and they'll explain everything to you in detail. I think it's like you've had a second chance, you know, and you've got to grab it. Yeah, you do see life in a different way. You see things going on around you, and yeah, I would have missed that. Yeah, especially with family, grandkids and things like that. They're all very special now. Yeah, definitely.
If there was no one available to do CPR, invariably the outcome would have been bad in that he would have died. Commencing prompt CPR is the most important thing in this setting, and within the first few minutes of not having the CPR, the outcome is going to be bad. So prompt, good quality CPR is the crucial thing when somebody has a cardiac arrest.
I just can't stress enough how important it is for people to learn CPR. Obviously, the evidence is here now. I'm here to talk to you about it. If them officers at the time when CPR trained, I wouldn't be here now. So please, please learn CPR. It's very important.
So Neville's video there, it was quite emotional watching you watch it, Neville, because you were nodding away to yourself there. So yeah, thank you very much for sharing that story. And that story just tells the story that a team is needed to save an individual life, and each person in that team has an individual job to do, and it's important that they do that job. In this slide here, you'll see the first person there, that's Leon, who unfortunately couldn't be here today. But Leon recognised that there was something happening that he needed to respond to. He realised that Neville needed support, and he started CPR without delay. The next people you'll see in the picture are Duncan and Hugh, which are here today as well. Thank you very much for attending. They came along with a defibrillator in the police car and ensured that Neville got early defibrillation. Welsh Ambulance Service then were able to come to the scene and make sure that Neville was transported safely to the North Wales Cardiac Centre, where he then received his ongoing care. So today we're going to share with you some innovative approaches that we've taken to kind of understand what's needed within the chain of survival and how we've implemented change. I'm going to introduce you now to Dr. Wendy Hardiman.
Thank you, Julie, and it's really lovely to see you all here today as well. So just building on what Julie just said a few moments ago about how it takes a team to save a life, increasingly now in European Resuscitation Council guidelines and also UK Resuscitation Council guidelines, we're seeing an increased emphasis now also, and it takes a system to save lives. And part of that emphasis outlines how important it is there's a link between community and emergency services. And what I'd like to take you through now is an approach which Save a Life Cymru and many others in the field of resuscitation are looking to embed now in order for people to be aware of how to do CPR and how to use a defib across the lifespan. So, as previous speakers have highlighted today, a timely interaction is vital in terms of intervening in the event of a cardiac arrest. As members of the public or family members or bystanders or professionals, you're much more likely to be the first on the scene prior to even the fastest emergency service responder arriving. So having a wider population that has the confidence and is willing to give it a go to intervene when talked through how to do CPR and how to use a defibrillator by a 999 call handler is a really important message for us to share. And that's also something that's been the focus of the communications campaigns within Save a Life Cymru as well, emphasising that important element that help is closer than you think and is at hand. So what I'd like to do now is to talk about the programme of work that SaLC is undertaking to develop a more resilient communities. And this is through providing public access defibrillation and building community CPR and defibrillation awareness so that people are more willing to intervene in the event of an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. And this is really important because attitudinal surveys conducted in Wales, but also wider in the UK, exploring public knowledge, attitudes and behaviour to responding to out-of-hospital cardiac arrest, have identified barriers to intervening, such as lack of confidence and lack of knowledge to intervene, and lack of opportunities to access relevant training often features in these responses. But what we have found in some of the attitudinal surveys that we've conducted in Wales, which builds on earlier work in Scotland, it highlights that when people are asked if they feel more confident to intervene, if they're talked through by a 999 call handler, confidence rates went up. So that's a really core message. Often people think they have to be trained in CPR and using a defibrillator, but actually they'll be talked through the process. So one of the core messages is ringing 999 and going through that process. So when we're looking at this lifespan diagram that you can see in front of you, we can see that there are a number of core touch points where we could look to introduce CPR and AED awareness throughout the lifespan. So that's within schools, and we have a programme of work already underway working with schools and primary schools, which I'll give you a little bit more detail about in a few moments. For us, it's core that children, this becomes something and we embed within our society, emphasis on being CPR aware and knowing how to use a defibrillator and potentially willing to intervene is an element of being a good citizen, and it's how we look after each other. So we have some resources that we've developed for use in primary schools, which I'll take you through in a few moments. And we are exploring how best to embed CPR awareness within primary and secondary schools now as part of our work programme. Another core touch point, which you can see on the bottom of the diagram with the little hat, is work within universities. So we've got ongoing work at Cardiff Met, where we're looking at introducing CPR awareness and AED awareness as part of the teacher training courses which we run, so that those newly qualified teachers will be aware of how they could look to integrate that element within the curriculum, where they're looking at life-saving skills as part of the new health and wellbeing curriculum. Another aspect of the work that we're looking at undertaking in Cardiff Met is building on work that Cardiff University have undertaken, led by Dr. Elliot Phillips, who was a med student and now is a foundation doctor, and they look to see how they could engage students and motivate them to help share learning around CPR and AED awareness, so peer-to-peer learning. So thank you, Elliot, for that work that you've been doing at Cardiff University, and we're looking to see how we can build on that as well now in Cardiff Met. Save a Life Cymru also, along with the DVSA, which is I'm going to get this name wrong now, so the driving standards, I can't remember the last bit, so I'm so sorry, DVSA. You'll have to clarify that for me. I should have written it down. But the DVSA and colleagues in 3 other UK nations are part of a 4 nations working group, which are currently focusing on embedding CPR and AED awareness at this key touch point. And this group is chaired by Professor Len Noakes. As you can see on the last little figure underneath the lifespan development, I found it really difficult to find an icon that would represent the whole range of different work roles we have. So apologies if you're not desk-based. It was a bit of a challenge. But ultimately, we're also looking to embed CPR in the workplace. Although some organisations, it may be a requirement in some professions that people undergo some form of CPR and defibrillation awareness, it isn't something that is mandated across Wales or applies in all organisations. So when we're adopting a lifespan approach, we're trying to look at key points in time where we can spread information to the largest numbers of people possible about CPR and AED awareness. So in doing so, we're hoping that we can build more resilient communities in the event of out-of-hospital cardiac arrest and build a nation of potential lifesavers. You'll see here on this second diagram to the right of the slide that some of the points I've raised are it isn't just about sharing the information, it's also about helping to embed that within our communities, and by activating those groups in our communities to feel confident to intervene in the event of a cardiac arrest, and to ring 999 and follow those instructions. And if we're able to do that, we've got scope to then grow and cascade knowledge within our communities, and this is something that's often been seen in schools. There are programs in place such as Kids Saves Lives, which is a European-wide initiative where they found that children can act as multipliers. So once they become CPR, they know how to do CPR and they know how to use a defibrillator, that they can share that knowledge with their family members so that they can cascade that knowledge. So I'm just going to take you on to the next slide, and that's just a flag. When you go upstairs later, there's a series of posters upstairs. The diagram there is taken from a poster which was focused on work that we're doing about empowering teachers to deliver CPR and AED awareness as part of the curriculum. So some of the work that we've been doing with Save a Life, the work that we've been doing with Save a Life Cymru at Cardiff Met has been published in a range of different forums, but also there's some earlier work with colleagues in HIW that was undertaken before I came into post as well, is also illustrated here on this slide, and which Dr. Susan Goodfellow will allude to later in her presentation. So if you're interested in seeing any of the posters or getting more information, they're also upstairs. So this next slide really is just taking you through, highlighting the sort of approach that we're trying to take in Save a Life Cymru. And some of that is around trying to understand the nature of the problem. So how are we doing this? Well, as Julie has alluded to earlier, we have a research arm within Save a Life Cymru, which is embedded within the Centre for Activity, Health and Wellbeing Research within Cardiff Met. That team's led by Dr. Michael Mellick, and this unit adopts what we call a pracademic approach to the project, which involves encompassing knowledge from practitioners as well as academics, so that we can co-construct this academic collaboration. As part of this team as well, we also have Phil Hill, who some of you may know because he's been active in this field for a long time. Phil Hill's a senior nurse in ABUHB Health Board, and he studied public access defibrillation in Wales and submitted a petition previously to the Senedd. He's since been funded by Save a Life Cymru to undertake his professional doctorate, and this is an original piece of work in the Gwent area looking at the impact of public access defibs with the Welsh ambulance service. We're delighted as well, as part of this supervisory panel for Phil, that we have an external member to the team, which is Professor Nigel Rees. So it's wonderful to have Nigel as part of the supervisory team for Phil as well. So in terms of looking at how we understand the problem, some of that's mapping out the landscape. And by that, we mean trying to understand the nature of what exists in the field. So that means drawing on what we know about Wales, but also what we know internationally in terms of, are there interventions, have there been initiatives that have been undertaken in other countries which have been shown to improve outcomes that might have relevance for Wales? And as part of mapping this landscape, we also need to know what the end user needs and understand more clearly what our diverse communities need, rather than presuming that one cap fits all. So this next slide is just to illustrate how some of the work that we undertook to do this in relation to understanding more about teachers' perceptions and confidence and willingness to teach life-saving skills as part of the new curriculum in Wales. So what we found when we conducted a small pilot study was that although some teachers might have had, who completed the survey, they might have had experience at some point in their lives of undergoing CPR and AED awareness training, they didn't necessarily indicate that they felt confident to deliver this aspect on the curriculum. And we've since repeated this survey as well, a larger scale survey, pan-Wales, although there are challenges reaching teachers in schools. So we've got a higher number of responses there. So a later survey, but it also indicates that some of the themes that are coming through are around lack of confidence and lack of perceived resources to cover this aspect of the curriculum. So what we've been doing within SaLC is aiming to understand this scenario and look at how we can support those within schools to deliver this aspect of the curriculum. So it's not just about having the resources, it's about people feeling confident to use them as well. So this next slide really captures a range of the work that we've been doing in Save a Life Cymru. So if I can draw your attention to the red heart in the blue square on the left-hand side of your screens. This is in relation to an initiative called Restart a Heart that was undertaken with Save a Life for Scotland and the Scottish Ambulance Service. And when we're looking at innovative approaches to sharing knowledge around CPR and AED awareness, this was a fantastic event that live streamed a CPR and AED awareness session via YouTube. And I'll let Julie tell you more about it later, because this was part of a Guinness World Record attempt. But fitting around there, it just shows that we might have to draw on more than one type of resource. It's not feasible to deliver face-to-face training to the whole of the Welsh population. So we have to be creative and look at different ways of how best we might embed awareness and spread this knowledge. So it's not just a mixture of the academic work we're doing, it's also around how we communicate this as well with wider campaigns. So we've done a whole range of work which has covered developing this bespoke CPR song resource, which we've got details upstairs, which is a resource for primary schools. And I'd like to direct you later if you want to have any pictures taken with Elvis and Jess, who are part of the CPR resource. You can do that upstairs afterwards. We also did some work with Transport for Wales to help them deliver CPR and defibrillator awareness, so that they as an organisation can look to cascade that knowledge within their teams. We're also looking at public forums, going where people are, not presuming they'll come to us. So we've attended a Ramadan event, we've also attended a marketplace event here, to look at where we can meet people to share and raise awareness of CPR and defibrillation and how best people can engage in learning that. We were invited to support a CPR-a-thon that was led by Claire Crook over in Porthcawl. An amazing event and such a wonderful day, seeing a whole school go through and taking part in a CPR-a-thon to raise money for defibrillators in the community, but also to enhance the CPR and AED awareness in the school. And it was a lot of fun, and there was a lot of mannequins that deflated, and some teenage boys who found it absolutely hilarious. So that was a lot of fun to be at that. So thank you, Claire, for that work too. We've also undertaken work with Cardiff City Centre Council, who you can see in the bottom left corner. So there's some work undertaken to look at where best to place defibs in areas of high footfall. So we did some work with them to actually make sure that defibs are placed in those areas, and they have actually been used to save lives. We are aware of where there's been cardiac arrest, and we've been able to intervene in that way. Another exciting aspect of the work in terms of embedding defibs is also with the Welsh ambulance and police service as well. So every police and ambulance station has a defib on site, or within 500 metres, which is available 24/7. And some work's been undertaken in North Wales in the rural areas. So some police units have defibrillators in their cars, such as rural crime and road crime. And one of these defibrillators saved Neville's life, as you heard earlier. We've also offered defibs to schools across Wales for those that don't have them in secondary schools. And we've also got an exciting project that we're working with currently with TechniQuest, which is underway. I can't give you more details now, but it's just to say, watch this space. So there's a range of exciting work that we are undertaking. And as you can see, we need to draw on a whole range of different resources and look at how we can develop bespoke resources. So what I'm going to do now is kindly hand you over to Dr. Susan Goodfellow, and also to Jamie Sullivan as well. So I'll just move to the next slide. Thank you. Could not move.
Thank you, Wendy, and good afternoon, everyone. So my role within SaLC and within the Cardiac Network in Wales is to support the team to develop their improvements along the lines of quality improvement. So what is quality improvement? Most of you may be unfamiliar with it, but it's a series of validated tools that we can use to support complex systems in their improvements, and that particularly describes the NHS and any other healthcare environment. One of the definitions I quite like to use is it's a systematic approach to a problem, the solutions to which are not yet known. Now that latter bit is important because we must go in there with an open mind. And received wisdom is that within complex systems, the problems are multifactorial, and therefore the solutions are also multifactorial. For those of you who work in other fields, particularly in sports, quality improvement is akin to the Sir David Brailsford approach with the Olympics in 2012 to try and improve British cycling. He knew that there wouldn't be a magic bullet to get the team to leap ahead of their competitors, but he also knew that a series of marginal gains could give an additive effect that would get them the upper hand, and that's indeed what was shown to be the case. So that's another type of quality improvement. So that's QI in a nutshell, but how do we define quality within healthcare? Fortunately, this has already been done for us, and you can see from this slide there are 6 domains of quality that are already embedded in the NHS in Wales. And we would all wish for our own healthcare and for that of our families that we would have safe, timely, efficient and effective care that was equitable and patient-centred in every case. Now that is challenge enough in a healthcare environment, But imagine the challenges of trying to deliver that sort of care in a community situation where you have a sudden and extremely urgent medical condition, where a patient may be anywhere from within their own home to an urban environment, or even in a remote field, and healthcare is far away. The challenges are indeed very real. So how do we structure this quality improvement? Well, we use a series of templates, and I want to bring your attention to just two aspects of this particular slide to help you understand the way we structure these improvements. And the first of this is that we have an aim. We know what the aim is. It's to improve out of hospital cardiac arrest survival rates. But we need to know that what we are doing is actually an improvement. So in that second question there, it says, how will we know that our changes are an improvement? And we know that because we must measure them. And we must have a measure that fits with what we're trying to do. And particularly in quality improvement, as opposed to audit, we use continuous data over time. Now, continuous data differs from audit. In audit, most of you will be familiar that you have a snapshot of data and then a time interval, and then you will measure it again. And something will happen in between times that delivers an improvement. In quality improvement, we use continuous data over time. We measure continuously before we start making our changes. We measure during our changes to look for signals of improvement. And we continue to measure afterwards to make sure those improvements stay and they are sustainable. So that defines the type of measurement we use in quality improvement. And underneath that graphic, you can see these 3 cycles of change. These are tests of change, small tests that we use to deliver improvements, and we keep repeating those until we get it right. They may increase in scale, they may increase in domains, and they may increase geographically, but we keep repeating our cycles of change while watching for signs of improvement to know that we're going in the right direction. And that again typifies quality improvement. This next slide I'm going to show you is a driver diagram, which just shows some of the things that we structured our improvements on in SaLC. You'll see the aim is in the red box. I won't repeat that. We know what the aim is. The primary drivers that you see in the next column were defined by the team that comprises SaLC because they are the subject experts. And we decided that the primary drivers, which are the things that must change in order to deliver the improvements, would be these 3 things. The first was CPR capability within the population of Wales. The second one, which Wendy has already discussed in more detail, is behavioural change amongst the citizens of Wales to ensure that awareness and willingness to intervene becomes the norm. And the final one was that defibrillator capability and capacity was also increased among the citizens of Wales, and we've heard a little bit about that so far. There's then a series of secondary drivers which just subdivide those, which I won't go into. And beyond that, we have our tests of change or our improvements and something that we would measure. So, for example, if we were trying to improve CPR training, we couldn't do it all face-to-face. SaLC has defined a list of quality online resources that can be used to teach CPR and is promoting those across the country and even beyond. You'll hear more about that from Julie. And the way we would measure that is to measure the interaction with those digital devices or videos, and then also measure the increased confidence of people who undergo that training. So that's just a very small example in one domain. I want to show you some data. This graphically illustrates one of the very early improvements that certainly Julie and her team developed, and that was around the time that I first joined SaLC as well. This is a run chart, which is a very simple way of demonstrating our continuous data over time. On the bottom, you'll see it's 4 months in 2022. The top line shows you the situation in North Wales with regard to all the defibrillators in the community and whether they are ready for use in an emergency. So imagine we have thousands of defibrillators across Wales. They must be ready for use when that moment arrives. Sometimes they are never used. Sometimes they may be used frequently or infrequently. They all must be emergency ready at the point at which they're needed. So you can see in North Wales, during this time period, there was an emergency readiness of about 81%, in contrast to the rest of Wales, where it was about 70%. So why was that? Well, we knew why it was. It was because the first community coordinator was Julie's pioneering work up in Betsy Cadwaladr, and an individual who was the first in that role where he worked in the community, not only to support the community to learn CPR, but also to make sure the defibrillators were emergency ready. And you can graphically see in that one set of data the difference that that work made. And so in 2022, more community coordinators were appointed to cover all aspects of Wales and all regions of Wales. So the challenge for us in SaLC was then to close that gap in defibrillator emergency readiness, and beyond that, to see how high can we go with this emergency readiness, because we felt that 81% could probably be improved upon. And you'll see more of that with the slides that Jamie will present later. The next challenge was to find out why there may be defibrillators in the community that were not emergency ready. So how do we look at that? Well, we use another quality improvement tool called the fishbone analysis. You can see it is what it says on the tin. It's a fishbone in front of you. And in the head of the fish, you've got the problem, which is that these community defibrillators were not ready for use when they were needed. And why was that? And within that fishbone, there are 17 different reasons why a defibrillator might not be of use when it's needed. And you'll see those are subdivided into 6 different domains in blue. So again, you're looking at one tiny aspect of SaLC work. You then try and look at defibrillators and you find there's multiple problems with the defibrillators. So how on earth do you start to work on that? Well, you may not be surprised to hear that we have another tool that is validated to decide where to start. And that's called Pareto analysis. Now, Vilfredo Pareto was an Italian economist who coined the Pareto rule, which is the 80-20 rule. And what he said that if you have a problem, 80% of that problem is usually created by only 20% of the contributing factors. And it may be of interest that this doesn't just apply in healthcare. So if you can find within all those contributing factors the most important ones, known as the vital few, you can eliminate the others, known as the insignificant many, and you can then work on the ones that are really creating the problem. So this mathematical analysis may seem complicated. It's actually very simple. We asked Thomas, who was the first community coordinator in North Wales, to detail of the next 30 defibrillators he went to check, and they were not emergency ready. What was the main reason for that? So he came up with the reasons, which you'll see on the x-axis or the bottom line. He came up with those reasons, and along the vertical axis, you'll see the number of times that occurred. And your eye will immediately be drawn to the left of the graph, where you see 2 columns, one in red and one in yellow. And they are the vital few causes in this particular scenario. Above those blocks, you'll see a blue line, which is a cumulative percentage line, and that just tells us where the 80% kicks in. If you drop a vertical, you'll see you need to look at the ones on the left. And the ones on the left are all related to guardianship of these devices. I don't think it's been mentioned yet, but when a community defibrillator is put in place, it's important that that defibrillator has a community guardian assigned to it. And these guardians are some of our unsung heroes, because they work tirelessly in the community without pay, and they volunteer to look after their local defibrillator or defibrillators. They may have more than one under their care. And when this device is deployed, it needs to be reset and given new consumables such as chest pads. And sometimes these devices also need routine checks and routine maintenance. And these guys are responsible for it. So the top 2 reasons in this data set why these defibrillators were not deployable when needed was that these guardians had been unable to do their job. In the first instance, they hadn't visited for 7 days. Maybe reasons for that. They're allowed to go on holiday, they're allowed to have jobs, etc. And in the second case, the defibrillators had not been assigned a community guardian, so there was no hope that this defibrillator would ever be looked after in the longer term. So rather than looking at all the different 17 reasons of why a defibrillator was out of action, the team were able to then go straight to these 2 reasons first of all, and visit all the defibrillators in their location as community coordinators and make sure that guardianship was prioritized, because this was one of the factors that keeps these defibrillators working. So I'm going to hand over now to Jamie, who's going to show you some of our high-level data, and it also highlights some of the achievements that the team has been able to make in the last 2 years whilst using continuous data. Thanks, Jamie.
Hi, I'm Jamie Sullivan and I support the Save Life Cymru project analytically. So first of all, I'm going to discuss the circuit, what it is, the importance of the circuit, how we use the data, and then also touch upon some of the key improvements we've made since we've been using the data. So the circuit is a network of DFIBs, which is hosted by the British Heart Foundation. So if a DFIB is registered onto the circuit, it is able to be located by emergency services, who can then direct people to it in case of an emergency. So the database itself contains lots of complex information, so it's been essential really that we've built a strong working relationship with the BHF, so it's allowed us then to build a robust reporting procedure here in Wales. So I'll just move on now to some of the improvements that we've seen since using this data. So I'm going to show you 3 charts today, all of which are statistical process control charts. I won't go too heavy into the stats, but these charts are to monitor changes in processes and in these cases highlight improvements. So this chart here you can see on screen is the count of defibrillators that are on the circuit in Wales. So on the y-axis you can see there is a count, you've got the data along the bottom, and the line in the middle is the average. So since we started our collaboration with the BHF in August 2022, you can see we've increased by roughly 2,200 defibrillators, which are now registered on the circuit. So you can also see that the line in the middle, there are more than 7 consecutive data points above that line now. So that means that there's been a change in this process which has caused that. So that's down to the hard work of the cardiovascular network and the Save a Life Cymru project. This is the second chart I'll be describing. So this is slightly different. Instead of displaying a count here, we are displaying a proportion, so percentage. So this is the proportion of DFIBs on the circuit that have a guardian registered. So as Sue mentioned earlier, a guardian is somebody that is responsible for the DFIB. So they have to make sure it's rescue ready at all times. They check on it regularly, etc., change the batteries. So it's highly important. So I won't go into all the different lines, but the key take-home message from this is when we started working with the BHF and using the circuit data, we were around 70% of DFIBs had a guardian, and now we're up to, it's around 90%, I think it is. So a huge improvement there in such a short space of time. The final chart I'm going to show is identical to the one previous, but this time this is the proportion of emergency-ready DFIBs in Wales. So really important stuff here. And you can see that since our collaboration, we've gone from around 90% up to just under 95%. There was a point last summer where we did hit 95%. And you can see on this slide here is the team celebrating that there. So it just goes to show the importance of using robust, live, highly accurate data and the impact it can have on the community. I'll now hand over to Sue.
Thanks, Jamie. Just to say, some of the work that the team have been doing has been useful in the wider community, and we've been trying to promote it at international conferences, and it has been of use to other ambulance services to inform and collaborate with their improvements as well. So these posters, as Wendy has said, are both available upstairs for you to view, but just wanted to mention briefly, this one summarises the work I've already described, which is on defibrillators, and that was presented in Copenhagen at the British Safety Forum in 2023. And the next one is an interesting one because it was debunking some myths. There was a problem across Wales and lots of press interest in defibrillators in the community that were considered to be vandalised and therefore not in use, and this was it looked as though this was a major problem. You can see again, using a similar methodology, the fishbone analysis, the Pareto analysis, and some data, Julie and the team in the communities were able to establish that the main cause for missing defibrillators was not that they were vandalized or stolen, was more that they had been legitimately deployed to a cardiac arrest, but in the melee of healthcare that happens at those events, the device had not been put back in place. And quite commonly they were found somewhere in an emergency services vehicle or station somewhere. And so this debunked that myth and has presumably helped others in other ambulance services to also consider whether this could be a major reason. It also directs the team to know how to solve this problem. So this work was presented at the European Resuscitation Council in 2024. Again, it's available upstairs for anyone who'd like to see it. So the final points here is that we use quality improvement as a systematic approach to a complex problem. The use of continuous data is absolutely key to this, and continuous data is always a challenge in healthcare, not just within SaLC, but everywhere. But I can't emphasize enough to any of you with an interest that this absolutely underpins and informs our work, so that all the work of SaLC is data-informed and data-driven. Thank you very much. I'm just going to pass over to Fiona.
I'm not taking any responsibility of the clicker. Thank you. So I'm Fiona McLean and I'm from the Welsh Ambulance Service. Thank you. And I'm just going to talk to you about a project that the Welsh Ambulance Service and SaLC have been working together with. It'll explain the banners either side of me. So in a response to a request from our Assistant Medical Director to explore the adoption of a post-CPR support leaflet similar to that of Yorkshire Ambulance Service, we reached out to SaLC to explore the opportunity of working collaboratively on developing a similar resource. So to get baseline data and a better picture of what bystanders of CPR experience we're experiencing following a cardiac arrest event, research was kindly conducted by SaLC's Research Hub at Cardiff Met. Their findings revealed the psychological impact of performing CPR was similar to those seen in post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. This is significant because it shows the emotional toll on someone who performs CPR in a high-stress situation can be profound and long-lasting. The research also highlighted debriefing is an essential tool in supporting lay responders after they've been involved in a life-saving event. While we often focus on the physical aspects of CPR training, it's just as important to prepare responders for the emotional impact it can have. Signposting to post-CPR support will allow those who have performed CPR to express their feelings, reflect on their experience, and receive professional guidance. This can make a world of difference in reducing feelings of trauma and help them cope with any psychological burden they may carry. Therefore, it's important that awareness of their support needs should be integrated into CPR training itself. By educating individuals about the potential psychological impact and encouraging them to seek help when needed, we can ensure that responders feel supported both during and after the event. We also engaged with the Sudden Cardiac Arrest UK group, and they revealed some findings of a survey they conducted with their members, which give us some compelling insights. So their key findings were that the layperson was more likely to perform CPR on a family member, while healthcare professionals are more likely to resuscitate a stranger. And whilst that might not come as any surprise to any of us, it shows how personal the act of performing CPR can become when a loved one is involved. They also revealed that the outcome of an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest, even though it's favourable, the need for support after the event is still needed. And this highlights the fact, regardless of the outcome, the emotional toll on the responder remains. Shockingly, the survey revealed that only 25% of lay responders were offered any kind of support after performing CPR, which is concerning as it suggests that many people who have experienced this traumatic event are left to cope without any professional or structured emotional support. The survey also revealed that the needs of both the lay responder and the NHS professional post-CPR event are similar, emphasising the psychological impact doesn't discriminate based on profession, and the emotional challenges they face after performing CPR are very real and need to be addressed. Finally, the survey also highlighted the support is needed immediately after the event, and this is one of the biggest challenges we face, as delay in support can have lasting negative effects. I'm now going to share with you Paula's story, and I had the privilege of meeting Paula and her husband Matt upstairs, just getting a coffee. Paula's story was recorded for Restart a Heart Live and highlights the impact witnessing CPR can have, and how working with Save a Life Cymru collaboratively, we're now addressing these challenges to support responders and ensure prompt care is available.
Performing or witnessing CPR can be a traumatic experience. We're going to hear now about Paula's story and how you can get support if you've witnessed a cardiac arrest.
We were out running with our running group. He was right behind me, and then I turned around just to check on him, and he wasn't there. We ran back, and Matt was on the floor. He was no pulse, no breathing, completely grey. I just remember looking at him and thinking, he's dead, and I've lost my best friend, my soulmate. Nothing is going to be nice again. But the run group were fantastic. They started CPR immediately. The ambulance team arrived. They did 5 defib shocks. And on defib number 5, a policeman ran back to me and took my hand and said, Paula, we've got him. They loaded him into the ambulance, and then off they took him to the hospital. They explained to me that they were going to have to take him now, and they were going to do whatever was necessary now to save his life. Literally about an hour later, they came back and said they'd done the stent and did we want to see him. And he was awake and alive. And it felt just mad that he could be dead on the floor and now he's alive. He couldn't remember anything, but I could. I couldn't get past the trauma of seeing him on the floor, seeing him look dead, and then 3 days later someone gives him back to me and said, he's fixed, you can take him home. And that just was terrifying. And it just felt like I was going home with someone that could drop dead at any second, because I was frightened to go home in case Matt had died. I was frightened to be at home in case he suddenly looked like he was going to die and I might have to do something.
And what advice would you give to people that are in your situation that maybe have witnessed CPR and have got concerns?
Oh, I'd say don't do what I did, which was just sit at home worrying about it and not knowing who to contact. The worst thing to do is just sit and overthink it at home, because you literally ruin your own life. We were given a second chance, of life together, and I do feel that the first couple of months I didn't take advantage of that because I was so frightened and I didn't know how to make it work.
Yeah.
But as soon as I'd met you, and literally it was a light bulb moment, I was able to go home and think, right, I've got this. I know what I'm doing now.
And as we've discussed, we've set up this brand new website with the support of the Resus Council and Welsh Ambulance Service. We know what kind of support people like you need, and we know when you need it. And this resource that we've developed, it's all now in one place.
Yeah, I think that will be amazing, and that will help so many people. And thank you so much for doing it.
So now I've taken my glasses off, I can see Paula and Matt, so thank you for joining us today. I'll now hand over to Julie, who will explain the second part of the project.
Thanks very much, Fiona. I'm obviously a bit shorter than you. So the next part of the project, as Fiona said, we know what the kind of support people want who's witnessed or performed CPR, and we know that they need it immediately, but actually physically getting it to them in a timely fashion has been the biggest challenge. And so working collaboratively, Fiona and I are now looking to embed these simple cards, which have been designed with the help of Public. It's blue and white, so it represents kind of NHS colours. Fiona and I came up with all these posh names for the cards, and then the general public said, why don't you just call it Support for You? So that's what we did. And so we've got the telephone number and the website, which links directly to the Resus Council website, and obviously the QR code to make it a bit more accessible for people. And so Fiona is looking to embed this within the Welsh Ambulance Service. So we're currently working with the Betsy Cadwaladr area, community first responders and Charu teams who are there at scene, who are giving these cards out and are giving us some feedback. And then I'm working within the Betsy Cadwaladr area, within the healthcare setting, at all key touch points through a patient's journey to see if that's also a good place. Some people wanted banners within the hospital setting, so that's why we've got these here today. So work continues and will continue throughout this next year, and hopefully by the end of this year we're hoping that we'll be spread throughout Wales, and then we can inform NHS England, Scotland and Ireland what we've done, and hope that will help them spread it as well. If Save Life Cymru is really good at saving lives and the survival rate increases, it also means we're going to have more survivors, which is good news. But also it means that we have survivors that are going to need support. And so Neville's journey is quite unique in the fact that Neville had a heart attack which caused his cardiac arrest. And so Neville's entitled to cardiac rehab. And cardiac rehab is embedded in the NHS. So there's a picture of Neville, there he is, yeah. So cardiac rehab has been embedded in the NHS for years. So if you have a heart attack, then there's this programme of care that's given to the patient to make sure that they can return to normal life without delay. If you have a cardiac arrest for any other reason, however, there is no support, there is nothing. So you die, you're brought back to life with CPR, you're then discharged, and there's really no aftercare. Although John Goodfellow does tell me that maybe in South Wales there are some areas of expertise that are giving aftercare for these kind of patients. That's just the plenary bell, so we don't have to go anywhere with that. So we were very pleased. Sorry, I don't know, there needs new batteries in here. We were very pleased when the Resus Council asked John Goodfellow and myself if we would take part in developing their cardiac arrest survivorship standards. And this outlines what kind of care an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest patient should have, whether you've had a heart attack, whether you've had an inherited heart condition, and that's what's caused the issue. So these guidelines make it very clear, and it's the first set of guidelines that's available in the UK for this kind of patient group. So it's really good that we have the guidelines that clearly state what should be happening in hospital and what should be happening out hospital. And now as an NHS, it's up to us now to see if we can embed these within our NHS in Wales. And for me as a clinician, I'm very much aware that the cardiac rehab that Neville had is going to be quite different for the other kind of patients. Because Neville had a diagnosis and he had treatment, and then he was discharged. Whereas people who have other reasons for their cardiac arrest, when they come into hospital, they go out maybe without a diagnosis. So there's lots and lots of anxiety. They're going to need lots of multiple tests to try and figure out why they've had the cardiac arrest, and that again is going to lead to anxiety. And if those tests then say, yes, you've got an inherited heart condition, well then there's guilt because their children have a 50% chance of inheriting it. So there's a lot of psychological issues that go on with these patients. Some patients are never diagnosed why they've had an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. They just actually had one. And so what happens then is they have their own little implantable defibrillator popped in. And that just sits under the skin like a pacemaker. And if ever they go into a life-threatening heart rhythm again, this defibrillator will shock them. And that's reassuring because they don't need a paramedic because they have their own paramedic. But these patients have lots of psychological issues. The youngsters, there's body image issue, going swimming with a swimming costume or bikini, they don't really want to show it. You've got other issues with driving. If you're a HGV driver, well, you're not going to be able to drive a lorry or a bus again. So there's lots of support these kind of patients need. Also, these patients, we must remember as well, they've fallen asleep and woken up in hospital. What they don't realise is that the family have sat by their bed for 2 weeks while they've been in intensive care, not wondering whether they're going to live or die. These patients, fallen asleep, woken up, they don't really know what the fuss is about, and they just want to go home. And yes, they don't mind having an implantable defibrillator in, that's fine. And so yes, we can give them cardiac rehab, but actually they need that cardiac rehab maybe a year or 2 years down the line when this defibrillator goes off, because then they realise that they're sick and that they have got a diagnosis that needs looking after. So there's lots and lots to consider when looking after these patients and putting these quality standards in place. For me as a clinician, I've looked after many patients who've had an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. I've looked after one gentleman who phoned me up to say that he'd had a shock in the bathroom while shaving, wet razor shaving. And he wouldn't go in the bathroom, he wouldn't shave. It took me months to get him back into that bathroom. First of all, going in there with his daughter to clean it, shaving downstairs in the kitchen, and eventually I got this letter to say thank you. And P.S., do you know anybody that would like an electric laser? Because I don't need it anymore. So those things are really quite satisfying. Another one was a musician who, a musician who bit different. A year down the line, I met up with him, and he hadn't picked up his guitar because nobody said that he could. And another young lady in her 20s had, unfortunately, quite bad memory loss and doesn't remember having her second child. So that took a lot of support because obviously she's looking after somebody else's child, which obviously is a lot to come to terms with. So they need quite different tailored care, and it's important that we ask the end user, ask those patients what kind of care they need. And for me, I believe that they need kind of a lifetime of access to cardiac rehab so they can dip in it for short periods of time as and when they need it. And from an NHS point of view, I think it's really important that we think about what kind of patients have access to these standards, because it's easy to have an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest survivor, an in-hospital cardiac arrest survivor. They're quite straightforward. But what about these patients have an implantable defibrillator? They go to sleep. They have a cardiac arrest in the night. The defibrillator shocks them, brings them back to life. They wake up unaware. The first thing they know is that they're getting a phone call from their NHS centre saying, how do you feel this morning? Well, I feel fine, I'm getting ready for work. Well, you had a cardiac arrest in the night, so you need to come in and have your defibrillator checked. So does that person qualify for these quality standards? There is no CPR, no 999 call, just a defibrillator in the night doing what it's supposed to do. So there's lots to consider. And from an NHS point of view, there's lots of benefits. Obviously, there's a benefit for the patient without saying. But also, if you've got a patient that's got a point of contact and understands their condition, if their defibrillator goes off in the night, they know that that's okay, the defibrillator's done their job. And they don't need to come to hospital. They don't need to dial 999 for that ambulance. It's going to mean less ambulance calls, less A&E admissions where they become one of these patients in the corridors waiting to be seen. And realistically, they could just come in for an outpatient's appointment the following day. Hopefully, less GP appointments as well will be needed because these patients hopefully will have their psychological issues sorted out at source rather than going on for years at a time. And obviously we'll have more people in the workforce. Will that have an effect on us? Maybe we don't have to pay so much taxes, I don't know. But it's going to be good to get more people out and back to normal life. So from a SaLC perspective, obviously we're concentrating on the first three links of the chain of survival: early recognition, early call for help, and early bystander CPR. But we're very much aware that this is a negative impact, I guess, of our success if we have more survivors. So we'd like to drive this piece of work now to see if we can embed these standards. And so we've already approached the 6 goals within the cardiac network and our colleagues in networks and planning. We've got the cardiac research hub as well as all our clinicians that are happy to come together just to see what we need to do to start to drive this forward. It may not be that SaLC drives it straight through to the end, but we're definitely gonna start the process. And one of the ways we have started the process is by supporting Defibbers Cymru. So Gwent Defibbers was a small organisation in South Wales, and as a North Walian I used to use their booklets a lot for my patients because there wasn't anything at the time. And coming into this role, I had a conversation with Sandra and her team to say, have you ever thought about expanding and going Wales-wide? They didn't speak to me for 2 weeks, and I was thinking, my goodness, I've definitely upset them. And then they came back and they said, we're going to be Defibbers Cymru, and we'll put the booklet Wales-wide. And so it's a booklet that's developed by the patients, full of information that they wish they had when they had an implantable defib put in. And then they've allowed me to give them a little bit of the clinical background, and this booklet now has been signed off by all the health boards in Wales, and it's funded by us at the minute, Save a Life Cymru, to make sure that any patient that comes in that needs an implantable defib has one of these booklets. And obviously with the post-CPR support things as well, so we're definitely on the road to starting to look after these patients. Right, okay, so here's the big finale. So to conclude, by working together with each of you here today, our colleagues within the 4 nations and across Europe, we will strengthen our response and ultimately save more lives. Amongst SaLC's achievements last year, in 2024, was a collaboration with Save a Life for Scotland and the Scottish Ambulance Service. Restart a Heart Live. A new Guinness World Record was set. It's been a childhood dream, and I can't believe Save a Life for Scotland gave me that opportunity. So the new Guinness World Records was set for the most views of a CPR lesson on YouTube Live. An event we hope to repeat this year, not only with colleagues in Scotland, friends in Scotland, but also with all of you here. We would love you all to be part of Restart a Heart Live. So I would like to end with a short video from Restart a Heart Live, as for me it highlights the key message here today. It takes a team working together to save a life, strengthening the links in the chain of survival and helping to build a stronger, more resilient future, improving survival from out-of-hospital cardiac arrest, and providing support for survivors, their families, and those who have witnessed or performed CPR. Thank you.
I will fight for you. I always do until my heart is black and blue. I will stay with you. We'll make it to the other side like lovers do. I'll reach my hands out in the dark and wait for yours too, until I can wait for you. I'll wait for you. 'Cause I'm not giving up, I'm not giving up, no, not yet. Even when I'm down to my last breath, even when they say there's nothing left, so don't give up on. I'm not giving up, I'm not giving up, no, not me. Even when nobody else believes, I'm not going down that easily, so don't give up on me. Now I'll hold on to you, no matter what this world will throw. It won't shake me loose. I'll reach my hands out in the dark and wait for yours too, until I can wait for you. I'll wait for you. 'Cause I'm not giving up, I'm not giving up, no, not yet. Even when I'm down to my last breath, even when they say there's nothing left, so don't give up on. I'm not giving up, I'm not giving up, no, not me. Even when nobody else believes, I'm not going down that easily, so don't give up on me. I will fight for you. I always do until my heart is black and blue.
Waw, am fideo ysbrydoledig ac am areithiau ysbrydoledig. Such an inspirational piece there, and some of the speakers today, thank you so much for your words, your times, your statistics. Diolch yn fawr iawn i chi gyd. Ac mae jyst yn profi bod trawyd ar y galon yn gallu digwydd unrhyw le, I unrhyw bryd ar unrhyw amser. A cardiac arrest can happen to any one of us at any time, anywhere. It can even happen to magicians as well, as we've just heard. It can though, can it? It can. So we've got to be aware that it could happen to magicians and musicians. We've heard it here first. My takeaway from today is gallu di achub bywyd gyda CPR, gallu di fod yn arwr. You can save a life with CPR and you can be a hero. Felly, diolch yn fawr iawn i chi gyd. Cyn bod ni'n gorffen, just before we finish, we conclude, you heard Julie mention the Guinness World Record there. So we have some certificates for those who have kindly given up time from their busy schedules to be part of Restart a Heart Live. So as I call your names out, could you please come up to receive your Guinness World Record certificate of participation? Felly, mae yna gyfle nawr i chi roi clod. There's a chance for you to applaud now, as well as having some pictures, some official photographs. I ddechrau gyda, starting with the Cardiff City Player and Media Support for You Don't Need a Mannequin to Learn CPR. Can I have to the stage Ruben Colwell, Jack Annick, Callum Chambers, Callum O'Dowda, Joe Rolls and Mark Denham will collect for Jamie de Cruz. Felly, diolch yn fawr iawn. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you to Cardiff City there. I'm also a big fan of awkward silences, which was nice to have a nice little awkward silence there, boys. Thanks for that. Okay, symud ymlaen. Neville's story. Neville Owen and from North Wales Police Roads Crime, the Constable Hugh Capper and Constable Duncan Logan, and also Liam Kinniston from Traffic Wales and BCUHB North Wales Cardiac Centre staff, BCUHB Communications team. Diolch yn fawr. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Symud ymlaen, moving on to Paul's story, post-CPR support, sorry for that pop. Paula Betts, Matt Betts and RC UK. Diolch yn fawr. Ag I orffen, and finally, back of the ambulance, Fiona McLean, Patient Experience and Community Involvement Manager. Lara Jones, Cardiff Met student, will be picked up by Wendy Hardiman, and SaLC, or SaLC Research Hub, Cardiff Met. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much. Diolch yn fawr. And that is it. Thank you very much. Diolch yn fawr iawn i chi gyd am ddod. Thank you for all for attending. Pidwch yn ngofio i roi'r adborth ar eich ffurflenni sy'n yn eich amlenni ar y gader. Please don't forget to fill in your feedback forms. It'd be great to receive your comments and feedback, and you can now feel free to ask some questions upstairs. Achos mae cinio ar y ffordd now. Lunch is now available in the Oriel. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Enjoy the rest of your days. Diolch yn fawr.